Lee Murray, just scary, man.
Yeah, that's true. Lee Murray is one of the most legit gangsters of all time.
Well, I'll fight anybody. I don't care who they are.
Lee Murray was that crazy English hoodlum. He was a part of the biggest bank robbery in like the history of Great Britain.
6 men, some of them masked and armed with handguns.
This is organised crime at its top level. This is planned and executed with military precision.
British police are hunting for a gang that pulled off one of the biggest armed robberies in the country's history.
Biggest robbery in British history.
When he announced that final figure of £53 million, everyone's jaws just dropped.
They had like a movie, full-on tactical gear, machine guns, like the whole thing. UFC fighter Lee Murray, who robbed a bank for $90 million. He's still in jail right now.
This is the story of Lee Murray, a man whose incredible fighting skills were matched only by his propensity for trouble. Librahim Murray Lamrani was born in Greenwich, London, November 12, 1977. Lee's closest friends growing up were other boys from Buttmarsh and the surrounding estates, who called themselves the Buttmarsh Boys. The group believed they had a duty to look after Buttmarsh and would regularly get into fights with nearby gangs over territory. Murray wasn't a particularly big teenager, but he had already developed a reputation for being a formidable street fighter. Eventually, Lee found himself in a youth prison for young offenders, and on one occasion, noticed a smaller inmate being robbed by someone else.
I hope you're not going to try that with me. And my man said, I'll try that with anyone. Lee went bang, knocked him on the floor, right? And Lee Murray just said, yeah, come on in. Because remember, Lee Murray's new to the jail. He doesn't know that many people. This guy, everyone's in awe of and a bit scared of. They went into the shower. Lee Murray, I think, let him throw the first 2 punches, but he missed. And Lee Murray gave him about 4, 5, 6 punches, wasted him.
When he got out, what was the first thing on Murray's mind? Fighting.
Lee Murray was a big draw. You know, he had a big following, maybe through his street background, but he was a leader. He was a born leader. So as soon as it was Lee Murray was fighting, the venue was packed out. It was a sellout.
Murray quickly rose through the regional ranks, with all of his victories coming via stoppage.
The guy was a freak puncher. He's phenomenal, unbelievable, natural puncher. You know, there was no effort, it was just sheer speed and power. Hence the word lightning. And it was, unbelievable.
But before he would get his first official call-up to the UFC, he had already found himself face-to-face with UFC light heavyweight champion Tito Ortiz outside of a London nightclub.
Tito goes this way, Lee Murray goes that way. What I understand is they went at it and Lee Murray knocked Tito down.
Bang, he was gone.
Although Tito maintains that the outcome of the fight between him and Murray had been exaggerated,
where apparently Tito Ortiz got knocked out by Lee Murray.
Not true. He started running away, I started chasing to him, and he turns around and stops and plants his feet. I go to stop and I slide right into him. He clipped me, dropped me, and I popped right back up. Cops came, broke everybody apart.
Others who witnessed the brawl play out are unanimous in their recollection.
And Tito throws a combination of punches at Lee. Literally just ducks out of the way of all of them, bobs and weaves, and then Lee comes back with the combo, and every punch lands, all 5 punches, and just brutal shots.
Crack, 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 crack. A 5-punch combination, literally 5 punches. Smack, 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 smack.
With the legend of Lee Murray quickly spreading through the MMA world, the UFC called him up for his UFC debut against Jorge Rivera.
We scout fighters, and he already had a career going forward. So we were aware of him because he obviously had some talent there. He was a guy that was on the UFC's radar.
Whom he defeated with a triangle in the very first round.
Tell you what, Cheese, if he wants to fight me here, I'll fight anybody.
But after winning his UFC debut at UFC 46,
he got into a road rage incident where someone rammed his car. He had his daughter in the car. Someone rammed his car, smashed the windows. So he jumped out, punched the bloke, tried to take the keys out of the car, punched the bloke, broke his eye socket, and punched him again, injured the bloke. So his visa to America was taken away, so he couldn't go back to UFC.
Lee would go on to face Anderson Silva at Cage Rage 8 on September 11th, 2004.
One guy told me, oh, Lee Murray knocked him out Tito Ortiz? He said, what? No way. Yes.
Silva was already a respected fighter at the time, with a record of 14-2.
But it was a tough fight because Lee Murray came for blood.
Murray, although a game opponent, struggled to find Anderson on the feet and suffered through devastating kicks from the future middleweight GOAT.
Got kicked in the leg. That shit is no joke.
Oh, it's horrible. And to have a guy like Anderson kick you in the leg? Shit. And he's doing it right now. And he just used his Muay Thai. He was a Muay Thai wizard, a technical wizard.
Although he lost the fight, Murray gained people's respect with his sheer tenacity.
What was his biggest win in cage rage?
Lee Murray.
Oh.
Lee Murray in cage rage. And Lee Murray was a killer.
But he would need all the tenaciousness he could muster for what was going to happen next. On September 28, 2005, Murray attended a joint birthday party between his boxing trainer Terry Coulter and British glamour model Lauren Pope. Later that night, one of Lee's friends was attacked and Murray was stabbed whilst trying to help.
Lee was stabbed numerous times. He had a punctured lung, severed an artery as well, and he was resuscitated apparently 4 times on the operating table, so he was that close to death. Very lucky to survive that.
I actually ran into Lee Murray right after he got stabbed. Right?
Well, he got stabbed in the heart, didn't he?
He got stabbed everywhere. It stabbed wounds all over him, and they were still fresh.
Only 5 months after that was when he participated in the UK's biggest robbery.
The 2006 Securitas depot robbery in Tunbridge, England was the UK's largest cash heist, and it began with a kidnapping. In the early evening of Tuesday, February 21st, 2006, Securitas depot manager Colin Dixon was driving home when he was pulled over by what he presumed was an unmarked police car. 2 uniformed officers came to Dixon's window, asking him to turn off his engine and leave the keys in the ignition.
He told me to switch off the engine, leave the keys in the car, and started opening my door and asked me to go to the police car, which was immediately behind.
Once in the back of the car, he was handcuffed and the 2 men pretended they were driving him to the police station.
The bogus cops claimed he'd been speeding and said they were driving him to the local police station. Instead, they drove deep into the Kent countryside. Colin Dixon suspected the worst.
It was at this point that the 2 men revealed that they weren't police officers, but in fact, a part of Lightning Lee Murray's gang. One pulled a gun on Colin, telling him to do as they said, before tying him up and bundling him into a white van, which they drove to a nearby farm.
I've got no idea what was going on. Well, I'd got a good idea what was going on, I suppose, that a robbery was going to happen, and I was going to have to be part of it.
The 2 men impersonating police officers next drove to Dixon's home in Herne Bay and spoke to Lynn Dixon, telling her that her husband had crashed his car and that she and her son should accompany them to the hospital as quickly as possible.
Robbers disguised as police had called at his family home. They told Lynn Dixon that Colin had been in a car crash and they could take her to the hospital to visit him.
When she got into the car, Lynn Dixon realized it wasn't a real police car, and the men told her she was being abducted. They took her to the farm as well. Colin was then interrogated about the layout of the building before he and a gang member dressed as a police officer got out of the car and walked towards the depot. Dixon rang the bell, and the operator opened the door and let 2 men through the airlock into the building. Policemen then subdued the operator, and Dixon pressed the button which opened the gate and allowed the vehicles to enter the yard. The rest of the gang now entered the building, their faces hidden in baklavas and armed with handguns, shotguns, AK-47 assault rifles, and a Scorpion submachine gun. The 7 members of the gang attempted to load the metal cages full of banknotes into the lorry and found that they were too heavy. The other gang members grabbed bundles of money in their hands and filled up shopping carts and escaped with 53 million pounds. 4 days after the heist, Murray and Allen fled the UK to Morocco.
Murray fled the country. The chase became international, with authorities across borders cooperating to track him down.
Where they spent money extravagantly on houses, jewelry, and narcotics.
He would go into nightclubs and ask the nightclub owner to show DVDs of his fights. He'd buy £35,000 watches. He'd spend £2,000 on a night out. He'd tip a doorman a week's wage.
Kent police said in a statement that they had been tracking Murray for 3 months, and it was now just a matter of working with Moroccan police to bring him to justice.
They'd arrested the foot soldiers, but the man who they suspected to be the brains behind the heist was still out of reach.
On the 25th of June 2006, in a joint operation with Moroccan police, Murray was arrested at a shopping center in the capital, Rabat, for suspected involvement in the Securitas depot robbery.
Anyway, they finally get hold of Lee and the enforcer, tie them up, carry them out battering ram style into the vans, take them back to the villa where they've been living, where of course there's loads of drugs, cocaine.
Once captured, British law enforcement sought to get Murray extradited from Morocco, albeit unsuccessfully.
Kent police believe Murray was a ringleader of the £53 million raid, and they want to charge him with robbery and kidnap.
They refused, however, to extradite Murray. He had claimed Moroccan citizenship. His father was originally from the country.
Now locked up in Saleh prison, awaiting his day in court, Murray attempted to escape. His plan was to cut through the iron bars of his cell window with small saws, and even lost a significant amount of weight to make his escape through the small window easier. Thanks to his reputation and connections, Lee was able to obtain a laptop and 5 kilos of drugs. Other prisoners in Saleh held it against Murray that he was able to use his money to smuggle in items like these. So, a fellow prisoner who broke into his cell was doing so to steal some of Murray's belongings, but instead found his escape saws and informed the prison guards. In the end, all attempts at escape proved fruitless, and in June 2010, he was convicted of the £53 million crime in court and received an extended sentence of up to 25 years in Moroccan prison. A man who rose from the gritty streets of London to the heights of mixed martial arts fame, only to find himself entangled in a dramatic descent into crime. Murray's story is one of both ferocity and consequence. Lee Murray's life serves as a stark reminder of how ego, rage, and greed can overtake us. Locked away in a Moroccan prison, Lee's dreams of glory in the octagon will forever take a back seat to the ugliness of his crimes.